Disc 2. I don't defer to teachers or teachings. Wow. That sounds like I'm already pretty intolerant, so maybe it's something I should expand on a bit. Here's the deal. I am fully enlightened, fully truth realized. I am here, live, on the scene, and I have chosen to describe it as I see it. I don't defer. I don't rely. If what I describe conflicts with the 10,000 other reports, no matter how revered those reports and those who filed them may be, then to me those reports are nothing more than fable and folklore and should be consigned to the dust heap of history. The simple fact is that I am here, and here doesn't look all that much like anyone says it does, and I'm not going to waste my time or anyone else's pretending otherwise. It should be noted that here isn't mist-enshrouded or poorly lighted. It's neither mysterious nor mystical. My knowledge is unflawed and my vision is unobstructed. This is a tricky point to make, but a critical one. I am not interpreting. I am not translating. I am not handing something down that was handed down to me. I'm here, now, telling you what I see in the most straightforward possible terms. If that sounds harsh, then get used to it. This is a harsh business. I'm not writing this book to make money or gain followers or to be popular. I'm writing it to get it out of my system. My message isn't that you should believe me about what it's like here, but that you can come see for yourself. You shall no longer take things at second or third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the specters in books. You shall not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. You shall listen to all sides and filter them from yourself. Walt Whitman. Returning to Paul's transition, the analogy of a caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly transformation is also apt. We must rely heavily on analogies. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, and all that. Unlike the newly emerged butterfly, however, the freshly enlightened have no primal instinct to inform and guide them. When I myself went through this experience, I knew it was immense. I knew it was uncommon in the extreme. I knew it was the supreme accomplishment, beside which all others paled to insignificance. I could look at or listen to any person and know instantly that they hadn't been through it yet. And yet, I wasn't to know for years that it was enlightenment. Damned peculiar. When I finally did put it together, it was a very comforting, albeit mind-boggling, earth-shaking, paradigm-shifting realization. I had spent years as a closet butterfly, moping around with caterpillars and dreaming highly fictionalized dreams of becoming a butterfly. I knew that I was distinctly different from the caterpillars. I knew that an uncrossable chasm separated us, that I wasn't one of them anymore, that they weren't like me, nor I like they. I knew I was able to communicate with them only in the most superficial sense, based on my rapidly fading memories of their language and habits. What it took me a while to understand, though, was that the reason I wasn't one of them anymore was because I was something else, and that the difference was absolute. I had earned admission to a whole new reality, but I hadn't yet passed into it because no one explained to me that this new order of being I had become was what caterpillars meant when they said butterfly. After all, who is there to explain such a thing to someone who doesn't even know enough to ask? Damned peculiar. How is such a state of ignorance and confusion even possible? Simply put, caterpillars are egregiously misinformed on the subject of butterflies, just as we see in the novels and film that humans are egregiously misinformed on the subject of vampires. And who's to correct them? Vampires don't hang out with humans. Vampires don't return to educate humans, don't mingle with humans, don't care one way or another what humans think. Why should they? They're beings of an entirely different order, with only the most superficial similarity to the order of beings to which they once belonged. And that's very much what the Enlightenment thing is like. Instead of vampires and butterflies, just imagine being the only adult in a world of children. Really. Imagine how you'd develop over the years. Imagine how your feelings about children might change. Imagine the person you'd become. Damned peculiar. How many people actually get this far? How many people are really enlightened? Many claim it, but how many actually are it? I have no idea, but I would guess very few. Some of those in a position to speculate have estimated that 1 in 10,000 take to the idea, and 1 in 10,000 of those actually make it, meaning 1 in 100 million. Thinking worldwide and time-wide, I'd agree that it's in that range, that there are a few dozen truth-realized beings alive on Earth at any time. And how many of those few dozen, like myself, make an effort to assist others, make themselves known? Less. That's quite understandable, really. Once you get past the notion that duality, by any name, is bad, and unity, by any name, is good, you also get past any need to help or save anyone. I, for instance, don't do what I do because I think it needs doing. I am moved by no ethical or altruistic motive. I don't think something is wrong and that I have to make it right. I don't do it to ease suffering or to liberate beings. I do it simply because I'm so inclined. I have a built-in urge to express what I find interesting. And the only thing I find interesting is the great journey that culminates in abiding, non-dual awareness. I heard that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was very happy with his reclusive life in the foothills of the Himalayas and may never have rejoined society, but that he began hearing the name of an Indian city in his head. It simply appeared, unbidden, in his thoughts. When he finally mentioned it to someone, they advised that the only way to get the name of the town out of his head was to go there. He did. Got swept into a speaking engagement, and the whole transcendental meditation movement grew out of it. That makes sense to me. You observe events, and you allow the flow of things to do the steering, and you go where you go. So here I am, knowing something that other people want to know, and, in this particular instance, being in the right place to say some things that will simplify life for Paul at this point in his journey. There isn't much precedent for a person to stop being one kind of being and start being another, and no one is ever prepared coming into it. It may be absurd to speak of it, but it's far more absurd to live it. If this all sounds exceedingly strange, let me assure you, it is. And it's something I prefer not to let others struggle with when I see them freshly emerged from their 2 years, give or take, of soul-wrenching conflict. So, as Paul and I stood in front of the house in that glorious crystalline night, I was pleased to say to him, "Welcome." We spent the next hour discussing weird things like vampires and butterflies and solitude, and the next day and the next decade. You get the gateless gate thing now? I asked. Oh, he said, as comprehension dawned in him. He laughed, which is about all you can do. I didn't say anything. I wasn't teaching now. I wasn't trying to draw him out or guide him towards certain realizations. He'd already done it all. I was no longer Paul's teacher. He had destroyed me as his teacher. In a very true sense, he knew every bit as much as I did. Enlightenment isn't like graduating high school, only to start college, or even finishing college to enter the real world. It's the final graduation. No more hunt, no more chase, no more battle. Now you can go out in the world and do whatever you want. Learn guitar, jump out of airplanes, write books, tend grapes, whatever. Our teacher-student relationship was over. This conversation was just one guy who'd been around for a while showing the new guy the ropes. Chapter 6. It's all about Oz, baby. Seizing my life in your hands, you thrashed it clean on the savage rocks of eternal mind. How its colors bled until they grew white. You smile and sit back. I dry in your sun. Rumi. The house is like a small community. People come, stay for a week or a year. Friendships form. Difficult goodbyes are said. I'm sure the relationships in the house are deeper and more complex than I described, but I'm pretty insulated from the day-to-day affairs of the household and its occupants, and that's a good thing. For the last 5 months or so, we've had a mother and daughter with us. The mother, Marla, is one of the many who show up with pretty distorted views about what enlightenment is. I can't really teach her anything for now. I can only encourage her to take a look at her basic assumptions and develop a willingness to revisit them in a new light. As is often the case, she'll probably prefer her romanticized beliefs over the harsher realities and move on rather than change. The misconception about enlightenment stems from, or is at least compounded by, the fact that most of the world's recognized experts on the subject of enlightenment are not enlightened. Some are great mystics, some are great scholars, some are both, and most are neither, but very few are awake. This core misconception will be a big theme in this book because it's the primary obstacle in the quest for enlightenment. Nobody's getting there because nobody knows where there is, and those who are entrusted to point the way are, for a variety of reasons, pointing the wrong way. At the very heart of this confusion lies the belief that abiding non-dual awareness, enlightenment, and the non-abiding experience of cosmic consciousness, mystic union, are synonymous when, in fact, they're completely unrelated. It's possible to have either without the other, and there are countless millions of cases of mysticism and cosmic consciousness of varying degree for every one case of enlightenment. Of course, true cases of enlightenment are unlikely to attract attention to themselves, so it is certain that there are more than is apparent, like vampires. However, the simple fact remains that enlightenment and mysticism have little or nothing in common. Anyone, myself included, who has had a taste of mystic union will naturally assume it to be the very summit of human experience, which I believe it is. It would follow from there that anyone who enjoyed more frequent access or greater ease of access to such a rarefied state would be at or near the summit of humanity. All well and good until such a one is labeled spiritually enlightened. He or she may be a divine avatar or love incarnate.